Now, let's take a look at some of the things, other things that has been dominating, the headline. And of course, one of them is the whole GMO, protest. But right now, what we're seeing is CS Courier actually issued 72 hours notice, and this is to the farmers. Just give me a sec. To do what? To make sure that they release maize. He talked to them when he was in Trans Nzoia and said, listen, we're not doing this because we do not want, your maize. We're doing this because clearly there's a shortage, people are dying, but also give them, an ultimatum, because a lot of farmers and especially leaders from the region saying, listen, we have a lot, and especially right now, our farmers are actually in the process of harvesting. So why are we importing, maize from other regions? So 72 hours, which again should have lapsed by now, no? To see the farmers releasing maize. Do you think that is sort of like a fair trade for the CS to say, listen, you only have 72 hours, release the maize, or else we're bringing in the 10 million bags into the country?
Well, it doesn't make sense at all.
Right.
And I think some of these statements should be put within context.
Yeah. He said being in Kenya already sort of like a risk in itself. So adding GMO will not.
Those are red flags, and I want to believe that people around him are working day and night to find a way of helping him communicate in a way that is sensitive.
Okay.
I mean, Moses Kuria is a brilliant fellow, Lower Kabete graduate, great experience. But I think there's a difference between a representative and a legislator and a government servant who is serving in the executive, because you're serving all Kenyans. Kenyans who probably invested so much in producing their maize. And yesterday I got a text from farmers, because we were talking about this on TV. Now the maize that they're harvesting right now, they invested 6,500 for a 50 kg bag of fertilizer.
All right. Now
that price has since gone down because of subsidies. But you see, if you look at their cost of production of what they're investing, the cost of fertilizer was very high. The ones that the ones who have farms that are mechanized had to deal with high cost of fuel, diesel, and you cannot force them to sell their products at a price that does not meet the cost. And now, when you threaten them that you will import, now you are threatening the entire country, because when a farmer has to compete imported maize and sell his maize at a cheaper price, what that does is that it affects the local economy. It means that when you go to the ground, even money that is circulating in this local economy is non-existent, because the farmer who produced is selling at a cheaper price. The ripple effect of the other things that the money would be doing is also affected. And I think these statements that are made by most of these cabinet ministers and cabinet secretaries, we need to look at them from a strategic perspective.
All right.
Who are they going to affect? What are going to be the reactions, and what is the implications? Because that statement is a very big statement, and it doesn't speak to what the plan that UDA had when they were campaigning spoke of. Because they talked of subsidizing production. And I can tell you, when import, what you're doing essentially is you're subsidizing the production of people who are producing in other economies. So there ought to be a conversation and a middle ground to find out what was the cost of production and what would be the minimum,
So like come to a compromise?
Yes, so that you come to a compromise. You don't affect farmers and you don't affect the local economy. But I know the government is in a very tricky situation, because farmers need to be paid handsomely. Right now, but then the cost also needs to be affordable. It's a very difficult balance to maintain.
All right. And of course, the question of sufficiency, because again, someone would argue and say, listen, over the last few years, we've seen a number of farmers saying this is no longer profitable to us. We're no longer, doing maize. Let's shift and try to do something else. So the 10 million, bags of what the trade CS, talked about is like, we're going to import this because we do not have sufficient, maize in the country. Do you think this is sort of like the question of people creating a crisis so that we see the costs going higher, or really this is not sufficient, to make sure that we feed the people? People are dying of starvation, and we are known as a country for, just knee-jerk reaction. We're reacting to a crisis that has already been there over time.
For me, I come from one of the 23 affected counties, and I tell you, the statistics show that about 14.5 million Kenyans staring at starvation. I think that is quite worrisome. That's quite serious, because I come from a place that is between Garissa and Wajir. I can tell you there are people who are really, really affected. So when I hear the government saying that it's going to import on maize, I think for me, the end thing is, are we going to feed these people who are hunger-stricken? If these particular bags of maize are going to save the lives of the people of Kenya, I think so be it. That's quite good to me. It's quite commendable, because the whole essence is, let us protect lives, because our own people are dying of hunger. And again, on the other side, over time, agriculture has been the backbone of our economy. But where are we today? I think we have had a drift away from that particular income. It is not so many people who are now hell-bent on maybe relying on agriculture as before, due to very many reasons. I know that the Honorable Moses Kuri has been saying equally that there has been hoarding, and there's a scenario of artificial shortage. And I think that is also quite serious. That's why maybe he's imposing the 72-hour rule, in as much as to majority as it might be quite irrational. But the end thing is about 14.5 million people who are staring at death and starvation. These are the people who we need to feed. In the event we do not have enough grains, in the event we do not have enough bags, I think the government should do what is necessary. What comes first is are the lives of the people. Again, on the flip side, we should not jeopardize the lives of these particular farmers. We should not jeopardize their income. Their source of income should equally be protected in a smart or brilliant way. Equally, they should not be doing hoarding just to wait for the peak season, whereby they should be selling this at the highest price. So I think the government needs to do a balance. The only scenario, the only challenge we have in here is the Honorable Moses Kuri is a bit reckless. He makes some statements in a very sarcastic way, but it ends up being misinterpreted in the ears of Kenyans. And I think that is the problem. He needs to wear the proper shoes of being a CS, not to talk just as reckless as he is doing over time. It is about, in as much as you want to import the 10 million bags, make sure that they're safe for consumption for the people. On the other side, ensure you find a way of buying this particular maize that has been produced locally at a reasonable price that will not mess up with the income.
But then the question is then, so up until, like, when do we expect to see these changes? Because even the president himself, during the campaigns, he said, immediately we get into power, we're going to reduce the cost, of living. The prices for basic commodities would go down, but, the opposite actually happened. And he came out to say, listen, just give us 1 more year. And then we will see, a change in all those things. So people are desperate.
I agree with you. When they were campaigning, they were talking about focusing on production. Try to lower the cost of production to maybe make us food secure. When you just walk over to Uganda, our neighbor over there, it is doing so well agriculturally, in as much as their climate might be favoring them. But I agree with you that there is a drift away from the particular objective that they shared with the people. But now we have millions who are staring at death and starvation. I come from one of those particular counties, one of those communities who are highly affected. So I think right now, if we say, let us wait for us to be food secure, we will end up losing lives. So I think we need to do a balance. Let us save lives. Let us also give a lot of attention to our farmers. Let the government, as it has promised, focus on the cost of production. Let it lower that to make it easy for farmers maybe and more people to venture out into the agricultural economy.